You guys want a drink? I bet you never seen a YouTuber do that before. Okay, so. All right, so you've probably seen this flag right here before. You've probably seen it. It's the California state flag. Now, I, myself, live in California. I'm very happy I live in California. I'm very proud of it. Lived here all my life. And one thing about California that I like to say, like that my parents like to say, is that you're basically like a few hours from anywhere. At most, a few hours away from the beach. You're a few hours away from like some mountains, the forest, the desert, the snow, wherever you want to go. We got that in terms of like nature. We got rivers, we got lakes, we got, the Pacific Ocean. So we have a lot of shit when it comes to like pretty stuff to look at. And along with that, we have great biodiversity in California. In fact, some of the richest biodiversity, not just in America, but in the entire world, right? California's ecosystem is very unique. There's a lot of animals here that cannot be found anywhere else on the earth.
One of the animals that's actually endemic to California is the Channel Islands fox. And this fox is really interesting because it actually only lives in the Channel Islands, and there's actually a distinct subspecies of the fox on each island of the Channel Islands. The Thule elk is another interesting species that is endemic to California. It used to have a much larger range, as you can see here. Then you can see its range in 1970 and its range today, as we have done some work to conserve it. It's a really interesting animal because it's like a desert elk.
Now, as amazing and expansive as our ecosystem is, we are missing one keystone species that's integral not only to the land and the ecosystem, but also to the cultures and the people that called California home long before the beginnings of America. That species is the California grizzly bear. As you see here, they grace our flag, they're our state animal, they are the mascots of multiple of our sports programs. They're everywhere you look. They're all over murals, stories of the old Wild West. In fact, the California grizzly bear is a big reason for a lot of those early pioneers for coming out to California. The ones that didn't come for the gold rush came largely to hunt the grizzly bear and to enjoy the, again, vast, expansive outdoors that California has to offer and all of our natural beauty and wonders. Now, the California grizzly bear does not exist anymore today. They are extinct. And they have been extinct now for over 100 years. It's actually the 102nd anniversary of the last time a California grizzly bear was seen in the world ever. It was seen in Yosemite Valley in 1924, very briefly, and then never again. There used to be an estimated 10,000 California grizzlies before the arrival of European settlers. Many Native American tribes lived up and down California and coexisted with the grizzly bear for thousands of years. The grizzly bear was around since the early Pleistocene. From that time in about the 1840s on to 1924, all of them were all 10,000. As a result of this steady decline, we actually don't have much physical evidence for this animal. We don't have a lot of pelts, we don't have a lot of skeletons, we only have about 100. And a lot of what we know about it comes from fossils and things recovered actually from the Brea tar pits, which is not far from here right now, which is pretty cool. Here we have a 3D model of a California grizzly found in the tar pits in 1914. Now this is a female that was radiocarbon dated to have lived around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago during the Holocene period. Which is low-key, that's Holocene just means like right now to about 11,700. which just means right now to about 11,700 years ago. I'm not even gonna lie, like I've always heard people say that shit in like YouTube videos and stuff, and I'm always like, oh yeah, Holocene, this era of time. I didn't like think about it fully, but yeah, it's right now. There's some evidence that indicates there was about 7 to 11 different subspecies of the California grizzly bear in California alone. Out of all of the states in America, California was actually the most grizzly bear dense, which is crazy because they don't exist anymore here. It's really sad. We used to have more grizzly bears here than anywhere else in America, and it's just, I mean, it's extremely sad to me. They're all gone to this day. The California grizzly was known for being big and ferocious. Ferocious. It wasn't any more ferocious than any other grizzly bear, but it was a little bit bigger, we think. Apparently, like on record, they were purported to have been up to 1,200 pounds, which is very large for a bear. That's closer almost to a Kodiak grizzly bear of Alaska. And if you know anything about the Kodiak grizzly bears, you know they are the biggest grizzly bears in the world. So the California grizzly bear was closer to that. That's probably the closest living relative. So one of the earliest recorded encounters with a grizzly bear of from a white man is from James Cabin Adams. James Cabin Adams, you may have heard the name Grizzly Adams before. This is who they're talking about when they say that, and it's like, this guy was honestly just a huge piece of shit. Like, just a massive. Well, he was sort of like our little like West Coast P.T. Barnum. He liked to capture animals, basically wild animals, and go around America and put them in cages and treat them awfully and make money off of that. So yeah, like that guy. Oh god, yeah. I mean, this guy would literally kill grizzly bear mothers to take the cubs so that he could raise the cubs. You know what I mean? To do tricks for him and shit. Just an evil, deplorable human being. Like, even for the time, like, just a horrible person. And the last known killing of a grizzly bear in California was in August 1922 in Tulare County. Okay, so look, I'm gonna be honest. Like I said, I'm from California. I'm proud of it. I'm from Northern California, right? Specifically the Central Valley, okay? And where I'm from, we are the agricultural powerhouse for all of America. Not just California, all of America. We supply like a lot of the food. I think I could be kind of fudging the numbers on this, but I'm pretty sure we supply literally 50% of all the like grown agriculture for all of America.
Okay, so what I was trying to say here, the Central Valley supplies 8% of U.S. agricultural output by value and produces 1/4 of the nation's food, including 40% of the nation's fruits, nuts, and other table food. That's what I was trying to say. 40%, not 50, not half.
It's mostly agriculture. So like where I come from, it's a lot of cow shit and dirt and orchards and stuff. We got a lot of almond orchards and a lot of cows. So I'm gonna be honest, like with that comes rednecks. It comes these weird California rednecks. It's strange to me because it's like, bro, you live in California. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a redneck, go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, you got all of America, basically, all of the American South, a lot of the Midwest, even like a lot of the East Coast. Go be a redneck, you know? They think they're like cowboys or something. It's crazy to me. There's a lot of these like these weird. They're very right wing, very conservative. I mean, it's basically it's like racist cosplay. Like they want to be, they really desperately want to be Southern, but they're not. They're from California, and even some of them will put on like a little bit of an accent. But I mean, there's no like telling whether or not that really was the last grizzly bear that died in California. Because to be honest, I think one of those motherfuckers could have came outside with the shotgun or something, and shot one in like 1947 or something. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in Modesto, even Manteca, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, Oakdale, like, come on, Oakdale, in Oakdale, like, come on. In 1916, the California grizzly bear was all but extinct. Due to the westward expansion of America post-gold rush, it had been overhunted by farmers protecting their crops or trophy hunters hunting them for sport. Grizzlies were known, especially California grizzlies, were known as the fiercest and most valuable trophies you could get in early America. This was a time when animals were not given reverence, they weren't given nearly the amount of respect that they deserved, especially by the American government. And at this time, the area of Los Angeles, here where I live now, and especially the Valley, was very agricultural. And in 1916, before the big Hollywood boom that would really be coming in the next coming years, Sunland was a quiet little farming community. People at that time already hadn't seen many in decades. They didn't think that grizzly bears existed anymore, and the man who shot the grizzly bear, Cornelius Burkitt Johnson, probably had never even seen one in his own life. When they sent the remains off, they actually mistakenly sent them off as a black bear because they thought it was a black bear. They didn't know.
The paper, dated October 29th, 1916, also noted that the Sunland community planned a barbecue of bear meat in the park to celebrate.
The bear had been eating grapes and honey from a local farm. Even by the 1860s, the bears had been so rare that they could be given individual names. One, for instance, was Old Moccasin John.
Old Moccasin John. They also call her Little Black Bear, and both of these things are just false because she's not, she's a she, and she's also not. Her name can be Old Moccasin John. I don't really care, but she's not a black bear. She is a grizzly bear. So one day, Old Moccasin John destroyed 30 hives. She ate the honey out of 30 hives, and for that, she was killed. A bear trap was set for her on a path she had previously been spotted on. The trap, often described as a mountain lion trap. Okay, I don't care about that. So this bear trap was set for her on a path that she had previously been spotted on. It is not recorded what Joplin baited the trap with. Whatever the case, Old Moccasin John took the bait, and on the morning of February 26, 1908, Joplin and his posse returned to check the trap and found the whole contraption missing, with a trail left in its stead. Their party was led by dogs who had picked up on the bear's scent. Old Moccasin John had made it 5 miles, dragging the heavy steel trap with her the entire way. Bloodied and exhausted, she fought off the dogs when they tracked her down. She took 2 bullets before a shot from game warden Ed Atkinson finally ended her. She was skinned, and they flaunted her pelt over a crate and took shots. Then they sent her skin to Washington. A photograph was taken. In his Tulare County property in 1922, Jim Agnew came face to face with a grizzly bear at a time when all the grizzlies were supposed to be gone. Agnew, who was concerned about the welfare of his livestock, did exactly as thousands of others had done before him. Colin Preston, a red-bearded lawyer and a black bear hunter from the hills of Arkansas who was in California by 1845. By his accounts, the freewheeling Preston killed an unbelievable 210 grizzlies in his first 10 years. They are scarcer now, he said later. Which is just like one of the dumbest quotes I've ever. Oh, the consequences of my own actions. Like, bro, what are you talking? What do you think? You killed 210 of them. Like, brother, what did you think was gonna happen? What?
if you live in California, or I mean, you don't have to live in California, but if you've driven through California, you probably, well, okay, scratch that. If you've driven through California, and specifically if you've driven into Los Angeles, you have definitely driven through the Grapevine, this little hilly area up north of Los Angeles. But this area was actually the ancestral home of the Tajon people. These people, the Tajon people, coexisted with these grizzly bears for centuries before this, and this area specifically was very dense in grizzly bears. Now, if you've been through this area, you might have seen a sign for a place called Lebec, California, but the town of Lebec is named after one of the last people to be killed by a California grizzly bear, Peter Lebec. And that story is very true, and it's the basis for the founding of the city of Lebec. And I always knew that, but I didn't know like the real like story behind it. All we know about the story of Peter Lebec for sure is that he was killed by a bear on October 18th, 1837. He was buried under a large oak tree by his friends, and they scratched into the tree IHS, Peter Lebec, killed by an ex-bear, October 18, 1837. So then the U.S. Army comes in, they build Fort Tajon, and they find this tree. They find this inscription that is now, at this point, almost 20 years old, and it's still going strong in the tree. They're very curious about it, and they ask the native Tajon tribe about it. They told the army that he had been hunting a large grizzly. Apparently, he shot it. He walked up to it because he thought it was dead, but he was wrong. Now, we know for a fact the body was buried there, as a skeleton was later found. And we know that the skeleton was missing both of his feet, his right forearm, and his left hand. It's believed that Lebec was a French-Canadian trapper, and he ran with a gang of basically bandits and cattle rustlers that were living outside of the realms of like modern civilization, essentially, in the West. Many years later, in 1895, officially, the town of Lebec becomes founded, commemorating the death of one of the only known people to be killed by a California grizzly. I actually only found 3 other instances of a California grizzly bear killing a person, and one of them was on Find My Grave or findagrave.com, which I don't know how credible that source is. I'm literally actually never been to findagrave.com before the filming of this video, so I'm really purely not sure. And then but I did find an actual source that mentioned this man by name, this man Jim Boggs, but the source that I found, he survived. So I'm not 100% sure. The 4 people that were in fact killed by grizzly bears were Peter Lebec, Andy Sublett, Isaac Slover, and William Waddell. These are the 4 people that were confirmed killed by California grizzly bears that we have records for. Obviously, there's probably been tons of like Native Americans that were killed by a grizzly bear for, you know, the thousands of years that people have lived there, but we don't have written records for that. So, of what we have records for, these are the only cases of a person being killed by a California grizzly bear.
Last documented case of a human killed by a grizzly in Northern California was in 1875. If you live up north, you might know about Waddell Beach. It's named after William Waddell, who built a wharf and a sawmill. So in 1875, on Friday, October 1st, William Waddell and John Bradley went deer hunting in the gulches behind Waddell's mill. After crossing Steel Gulch, they parted. Waddell to the right, Bradley to the left. Waddell found the remains of a deer that he thought had been taken by a mountain lion. His dog caught a scent, which it followed up a ravine. The dog began barking, then moments later it came bounding towards Waddell, pursued by a grizzly. The bear attacked Waddell in the thigh. The dog immediately attacked the bear, which let go of Waddell to again pursue the dog. The 2 disappeared in the distance. Waddell fired his gun to alert Bradley to his crippled situation. Bradley found Waddell with his thigh badly lacerated and bruised. Waddell was taken home by horse and treated by Dr. Charles Anderson, but he died 6 days later of suspected, I'm not going to say pyemia, pyemia, a form of infection that was almost always fatal before the introduction of antibiotics in the 1930s. In 1853, U.S. Army Colonel William Butts, it's Billy Butts, Butts was ready to leave for San Francisco on the first leg of a journey to the east when his ranch hand rushed in to report that he had just shot, but not killed, the old grizzly bear suspected of taking livestock. Truth was that Colonel Bill Butts never could resist the opportunity to kill a grizzly. Minutes after he heard the report of the old she-bear, Colonel Butts had gathered up his gun and long knife, mounted his favorite horse, and ridden off to dispatch the old grizzly. The trail soon brought him and his ranch hand to the edge of a ravine with near vertical walls. The colonel dismounted and stood, rifle in hand, studying the heavy brush at the bottom of the gully. As he stood to the edge of the ravine, searching the thicket below for the bear, he felt the earth beneath his feet shift. Before he could move, the bank gave away, and he went rolling and tumbling all the way to the bottom in the very edge of the heavy vegetation. After he stopped rolling, Butts wasted no time starting back up the steep incline. He knew grizzly bears well enough to expect this one would be at his heels, and, glancing over his shoulder, he saw the furious bear scrambling for purchase in the soft earth as she heaved her hulk up the slope behind him. The race to the top was a dead heat, and as they pulled themselves onto the plateau, the colonel wheeled to shoot the bear. In that instant, she clamped on the barrel of his .90 gun in her mouth and, according to the account given to a reporter for Harper's Magazine, bit it so hard that she bent it like a leaden rod, which is f***ing sick. It's like, that's metal. Like, I hope that's the truth. It seems more likely that the gun simply failed to fire. That sounds like a weak shot. I don't care about that. I think that thing was so mighty, it bit it, bent the gun. Butts raised the gun above his head and brought it thudding down upon her skull. The grizzly countered by grabbing the colonel's left leg and pulling it into her mouth. This brought man and bear to earth, each one taking a firm grip on the other, and they slipped back over the edge of the ravine and tumbled to the bottom again. The action was furious. The bear mauled and shook the colonel senseless, then left him for dead, only to glance back over her shoulder and find him looking her in the eye again, whereupon she rushed back and mauled him some more. This apparently happened a number of times. The bear was willing to practice until she got it right. Meanwhile, the colonel was working on her with his hunting knife, the only weapon he still possessed. He carved out one of the bear's eyes and stabbed and ripped her repeatedly until both bear and hunter were soaked with the grizzly's blood. After half an hour of combat, during which she even took Butts' head into her jaws and chewed on his scalp, the grizzly fell dead of multiple wounds. Butts was not much better off. His hand-to-hand battle with the grizzly had cost him an ear and part of his scalp. His face was paralyzed on one side, and he had a lifelong limp.
One of the other only known deaths by a California grizzly is from legendary frontiersman Isaac Slover. And this one is kind of crazy because, like, I feel like low-key he would have wanted to go out like this. Like, I think he likes that, like, this is the way that he died, you know what I mean? As, like, he was a legend of the frontier, right? He was someone who not only was, like, he's not like these, like, Grizzly Adams or, who was the other, like, piece of shit that I was talking about, you know what I mean? He helped people. Like, he was very known for helping people, helping travelers across. He was one of the early settlers in San Bernardino, and he was actually, like, he was low-key the first chill white boy. He had a Mexican wife. He was, like, he was one of the, basically, like, diplomatic ties between America and Mexico, and one of the first reasons that settlers were even able to come into that post, like, Mexican territory, settle in San Bernardino, settle in all these areas into LA and into California, Southern California, and New Mexico. He was one of the reasons that relations with Mexico and the United States grew. He also played a role in the expansion of people coming out westward. Like I said, he was known for helping people coming across the trail. Him and his wife were basically, like, famous for being, like, the best hosts. They would have people that were lost, hungry, coming in off of very long travels. They would bring them in, feed them, give them all kinds of resources and, like, stores to help them survive out the winter. They helped people that were coming to settle, start their settlements and grow. There's multiple accounts that people would not have survived if it wasn't for Isaac Slover. Slover, along with his wife, Doña Barbara, were, like, the best hosts. They're quoted as making the fluffiest and lightest tortillas. And they would just help travelers. They would set them up, help them with their settlements. So tragically, Isaac Slover was killed by a bear when he was 77.
One day he went up with his companion, Bill McMines, up the left fork of the Cajon Pass, almost to the summit where he came across a large grizzly, and Slover fired at close range. The bear fell, but soon rose and crawled away, and laid down in some oak brush. Slover, after reloading his rifle, began approaching the monster, in spite of ejection from McMines. As the experienced bear hunter reached the brush, the bear gave a sudden spring and fell on Mr. Slover, tearing him into pieces. That ended his bear hunting. McMines came down the mountain and told the tale, and a party went back and cautiously approached the spot. Found the bear dead, but Slover, still breathing, but insensible. He was brought down to Sycamore Grove, and there he died.
Now, Andrew Sublett was himself a bear hunter in Southern California also. And he died actually in Malibu. Apparently he was killed by a grizzly bear in Malibu. Andrew Sublett died in 1853, we believe December 19th, 1853. But he was also a famed pioneer and explorer, someone who helped travelers across the old Spanish Trail, and someone who was central to the westward expansion of America in the mid-19th century. Now, apparently he was a famed grizzly hunter. He was hunting a grizzly. I found one source that said that he shot one grizzly and then another came upon him. Apparently this was in Malibu. So looking back on the history of California and the history of not only our state, but before our state, the people who lived here before America, these bears were such a central part of life here. And it's extremely sad that they are not anymore, only symbolically, only in the iconography. But that doesn't mean that they're gonna be gone forever. There is hope that there could be a reintroduction of brown bears to California. Now, the reason, and I know some people are saying, like, oh, what, Jurassic Park, we shouldn't play God, blah, blah, blah. There's always that kind of like a thing whenever people talk about this. I know there was a big thing about bringing mammoths back, about bringing wolves back in certain areas. And the thing about reintroducing an animal to an area, like the thing that you have to take into consideration is the ecosystem, obviously, right? But is the ecosystem still being negatively affected by the loss of this species? Is it close enough in time for the ecosystem that this species could fit back into the ecosystem? And without a doubt, it hasn't been long enough that the California grizzly bear wouldn't be able to fit back into the environment, wouldn't be able to thrive in the environment. Like the talks with the mammoth, the same thing. Our ecosystem, our world is actually suffering because of the loss of these animals, and reintroducing them, especially in key areas, could lead to much better outcomes for our environment and for our world as a whole. So when it comes to reintroducing these animals, it's not necessarily good to think about them in terms of our lifetime, but more so in a more grand scale. Yes, it's been multiple human generations since this bear existed and since this bear was around California, but it hasn't been very long for the earth. It hasn't been very long for the environment. In the 70s and 80s, there were only about 1,000 grizzly bears in all of America, all of the United States. Today we've more than doubled that number. But the fight is not over, and we have to keep finding places for these bears to live, and to live in harmony with human beings and outside of the areas of human beings. We have to give them proper spaces and leave that space for them and not impede upon their area like we continued to do in the past. Again, the range of the grizzly bear used to be so much bigger, so much larger, and a lot of people are going to come out and say, oh my God, grizzly bears are scary and dangerous and this and that, and they'll eat you, they'll kill you and they'll eat you, they're real scary. But grizzly bears are not responsible for very many deaths. They're actually only responsible for about 1.5 deaths per year on average in North America, which is 20 times less than dog attacks or lightning strikes. If you know anything about bears, are opportunistic hunters. I think they're some of the most opportunistic animals on this earth. They're basically like big, fat, scary raccoons. Like, yeah, they'll kill the shit out of you if they have to, but they really don't want to. And they especially don't want to hunt you to eat you. They are lazy. They want the easiest possible thing. So when we're talking about reintroducing grizzly bears, obviously you can't reintroduce them in places right next to human beings. You have to find good areas. And so there actually have been 3 proposed areas to reintroduce grizzly bears into California. And those areas are our Northwest Forest, including Klamath, Trinity, and Shasta National Forests, the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and also the transverse mountain ranges. And I think finding space for these animals to exist outside of, human overreach, and hopefully with as little human intervention as possible, is the best possible outcome. The argument is going to be there always that, there's going to be conflict. These animals are wild animals and they're big and dangerous and whatever. But an animal's right to exist is not based on whether or not it's convenient for human beings. These animals were here long before we were, and I know that's always the thing to say, but seriously, the people that lived here long before us, the cultures that were here long before us, developed deep connections with these animals. And I think not only is it significant to the culture and to the people of California, but it's significant to the way that we do our best to bring these animals back.